Welcome to Dirt with Diarmuid and Paul.
Dirt is a GoLoud original podcast.
Woohoo, get you.
We've done it. It's Christmas. It's our podcast, but it's our Christmas special. We have been podcasting since, middle of this summer?
Yeah, we've made about 20 programs to date. They're all available on GoLoud. And the idea behind Dirt is that we want to make gardening fun, demystify it, but also talk about some of the serious topics that we should be discussing about equality in gardening and gardening with a view of our complete environment.
Today will not be serious, however, because this is our Christmas special.
I can't believe you can say that with a straight face wearing that hat.
This is professional. This is Christmas attire. It's Christmas time, and we're going to tell you a little bit about gardening at Christmas, what to do. There's not a lot to do, but we can talk about all the different things around Christmas.
And Paul is like a little boy who's been brought up from Carlow to see the lights in the big city for the first time ever. He wants to sit on Santa's lap.
I've been to Stephen's Green for the first time ever at Christmas, and it's magical. They have baubles the size of trampolines, and it's just great crack.
Whereas I'm a Grinch.
Yeah, he absolutely hates it. This morning, we were coming in here, and he was going, "Oh, do we have to do a video? It's Christmas time. It's terrible." He hates Christmas. I love Christmas. It's great.
This is Dirt.
I love Christmas.
When you get to this age, it's a matter of survival, Paul, to get to another Christmas. Do I love Christmas? Yes, I do. I like the fact that everybody's jolly. Things tend to stop. You're not expected to do much, and it coincides with the end of the year.
Yeah, and at a time of year when, we're gardeners, that's what we do, and it's really a crap time of year to do any gardening, isn't it?
It can be pretty miserable, pretty stormy, pretty cold, pretty wet out there, so to be officially allowed to be inside and just everybody's relaxed is good. Well, mind you, people aren't relaxed at Christmas.
No, it's really stressful and running around, but it is kind of magical. I mean, yeah, you were a bit of a Grinch this morning coming in here. You were complaining about just about everything there was to complain about. You were.
It's just they were letting us in this studio with cameras and all, and we've never been here, and we didn't. You were meant to get in touch with me yesterday, and we were meant to do a day of prep and to organise it
this morning. We're here now, and it's Christmas.
We're here now by a roaring fire, and we're really getting into.
Is the Christmas tree in front of the fire?
The Christmas tree
is really what you should do at home, actually. Top tip today, number one.
Yes.
Even though it's fake.
It looks good. So you do love Christmas?
Yeah.
What do you love? Oh, God, the little smile.
It's just everything. It's the magic. It's the fact that everything stops. It's the holidays. It's meeting people. It's Christmas last year was a bit rubbish.
So you've always loved Christmas, have you?
Yeah, because I haven't grown up yet, and I'm still 12 in my head.
And I think you don't intend to.
No. Santa Claus is still, I think he's still coming. I mean, I haven't really asked, but yeah, it's great. It's a brilliant time of year. What's not to love?
Do you know what Santa brought me last year?
Was it? Oh, I do know.
There were two of them.
Yeah. Two chickens.
2 black crows. He sent his helper with them.
Well, yeah, I may have last year decided to get you. Quite unusual to get somebody living.
I told you what I wanted. I wanted some of those show hens.
Chickens, and I got you chickens. Old English game chickens, which
they
are
fancy. So not fancy.
They look like quite strong crows, and they're a little bit scary. And they're scared. They're not scared. They do look a bit scary and intimidating, like black vultures. Yeah,
but they're scared. You walk in the enclosure around their coop.
Most importantly, they're freeloaders, and you've been feeding them chicken pellets for the whole year, and you haven't got one single egg,
and
which just fills my heart with joy.
The leftovers from the kitchen and whatever, and they've produced nothing.
Well, you have to be careful what you get for Christmas.
So
what was this year?
Yeah, God only knows. What was Christmas like growing up in Carlow?
Christmas was always family round. We always had lots of people there, and just a nice day.
Religious?
Not particularly in the morning, but that's generally
what you have to do in the morning.
You have to go and sit on your knees for 2 hours. What do you have to do?
Well, we used to go to, when I was a kid, to midnight mass, and it was always...
Wasn't that the one that they banned because everyone was pissed at?
Yeah, they were pissed. They were, because there was a pub across the road. It was in Rathfarnham, which is just in the south side. Dublin, there was a pub called the Yellow House, and everybody would fall in from the Yellow House, so they wouldn't have to go to mass the following day. And it used to start at midnight or at 11:30 and whatever. And you can imagine the raucous sounds from the back of the church. But that remained for as long as we lived in. As soon as I could get away from mass, I did. But it remained a family tradition. And people went to it up until the time, I suppose, my mum sold the house a couple of years ago. And now it's just about people coming around for dinner. For a few years, we were at the stage where it was all about little kids. Not about little kids anymore, but it's about cooking a big dinner and then snoozing it off in front of the fire, in front of the telly.
Yeah, there's finally a new generation of kids in our family this year for the first time in ages. So all of a sudden it all starts again. Because for a while it was, adult Christmas is a little bit less magic. But when there's kids around again, it becomes a little bit more.
So you love the build up to it, the day itself, or the
build up to
relaxing
it, the
time,
magic, the lights, all of the sparkle, the glitter, the glam, all of that. The day itself can be a bit of a damn squib because it's so
always
exciting.
quite boring.
And then you're like, God, there's nothing to do. You can't go anywhere. Everything is closed. You can hardly get batteries in a petrol station. It's just not as magic as well. It's great because everything stops and
What
you
do
can't
you need
go
batteries
anywhere.
for?
Lots of things.
Like what?
Ask any child on Christmas morning what you need batteries for.
And do you do a lot of preparation for Christmas?
Yeah, shopping and all that. No, nothing major. I mean, yeah, but you have to get yourself ready. You have to decorate the house. You have to bring in boughs of holly. You have to do all of that. There's a holly tree at the front of the house that every year used to get trimmed, and then that would come in. That was we're talking about traditions. What did you do as family traditions? And that was always chopping down the holly at the front of the house and bringing that in. And
so bringing sprigs of holly,
yeah,
and decorate.
we used to dump it all out on the street because the house is just in the middle of a village, and then everyone would come and take whatever holly they wanted.
Oh, very good.
So yeah,
oh right,
that was one thing. And we were what traditions? We always have a tradition of fighting Christmas Day.
I think every family
a game
does.
of poker.
Oh
So
right,
poker is banned in our house at Christmas time because of previous
fights.
interventions.
Okay, who was the dirtiest poker player?
One of my cousins, and it was actually him and his dad, and I think they were just having it out, a bit of a
So this was the excuse
exactly.
every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said you had an uncle who used to.
My uncle Brian used to come every year for Christmas. My uncle Brian and my auntie Connie. Auntie Connie was really a kind of step granny figure, and Uncle Brian and her lived together. They didn't get on, but they lived together. And Auntie Connie
They were married.
No. She would have married his dad after his mother died. That's complicated. It's an Irish bloody family, isn't it? Nice. So, but she was a real royalist, from Mount Brown in Dublin city centre. But she loved the Queen and she loved the royal family. But he was a real Republican, so he would drape the television just before the Queen's speech. Everything had to stop for the Queen's speech if Connie was there. He draped the telly in bog roll, in loo roll. And she'd get so annoyed and so angry. But so ridiculous, isn't it, watching the Queen's speech? Which Queen's speech do you watch?
Beyonce.
And how does Beyonce's speech go?
There's always a lot more music and a lot more of this. I'm going to keep doing this over the course of...
There's a lot of twerking in Beyonce's.
Yeah. It's far better than listening to anyone else. That's not something we do. There's always movies and stuff like that on. And
Favourite Christmas movie?
Home Alone.
Home Alone, yeah. I can see that. They've remade that this year.
Have they?
Yeah.
That's always a bit disappointing when they remake those classics.
Yeah.
The first two were brilliant, and then they sort of started to get a little bit off the...
Yeah, you only really need the first one, don't you? Macaulay Culkin. And favourite Christmas song?
Mariah Carey's a bit too predictable. The Santa's a Scotsman, which I played.
How does that go?
Well, it talks about how Santa really should be Scottish because he only works one day a year. He stuffs himself with mince pies, and he's a little bit on the chubby side because he has too many of them.
This is Talking Christmas Bollocks with Diarmuid and Paul.
Kinda. You're a garden designer.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
As a designer.
Yeah.
Do you feel you were quite tasteful in your approach to everything that you do? And
oh no, I think what do you mean?
Generally,
in regard,
and
tasteful.
Yeah,
no,
taste goes out the window too.
Yeah, lots of other people can do taste, but I like to do excitement. and whatever. I think as you get a bit older, you tend to become a little bit more tasteful in how plants work with each other and color-wise and everything like that. But it isn't a particular interest of mine. However, Christmas isn't about taste; it's about camp.
It's about tack.
And
It's
tack.
about glitter and jingle bells, and it's about tinsel, which there is some tinsel. We couldn't get any tinsel earlier because tinsel is now considered a bit.
When I was growing up, tinsel used to be a huge thing, and everything was tinseled to within an inch of its life. But it's not so big anymore. A bit of tinsel on that. But that looks like a professionally decorated tree, doesn't it?
It's a little bit too tasteful for my liking.
Yeah, it's quite corporate.
You see, if it was in my house now, it'd have blue flashing lights.
Blue.
Ooh, yeah. Because taste and colour schemes and all of that.
Yeah, but blue lights aren't about taste. They're just about cold and icicle and frozen and.
Are they just too tacky for you? Are they going beyond the.
They're not. They're just. They don't work, do they?
They can work. I mean, with the red, no. But blue lights on their own on a tree. My house in the porch, I always have a nice blue Christmas tree because it's always cold in there anyhow. So. Blue lights at Christmas.
But Christmas is all about red, isn't it? Wasn't it Coca-Cola who introduced this idea of red into?
Nothing to do with anything else apart from.
I don't think it is anything to do with anything else. I think they, St. Nicholas, they dressed them up in red and white because their bottle looked red and white.
Wow, I suppose the only thing in nature, apart from all the plants we have around us, is holly.
Holly.
That's a plant that's
Berries.
already red without anyone doing anything with it. A lot of these things are kind of messed with.
And holly was one of these plants that, of course, exists. It's a native Irish tree. It exists way before Christmas traditions. But as with a lot of these things, Christianity came in, grabbed whatever it wanted, and used as a symbol, a piece of decoration. I think people used to bring it into the house because it kind of shortens the winter. You still have that colour. It lasts a long time, and it looks nice and bright.
Yeah. Sure. We'll go with that one.
What else were we meant to?
We weren't meant to go on to that, which is why I'm
Okay,
pulling you back from that a little bit. But this was all about.
You haven't asked me about my favourite song. You haven't asked me what I want for Christmas. You haven't asked me about my favourite movie, my favourite Christmas.
What would you like for Christmas?
What would I like for Christmas from Santa?
Yes.
Oh, what would I like? I'd like gym membership or a personal trainer.
It's a bit much.
I'd like.
Just buy a gym.
But no, I got my dry robe. That was a big thing last year, and I ended up with 2 of them. So I would quite like a restocked chicken coop with productive chickens.
Chickens aren't meant to be productive. It's all about the aesthetics. You're looking for pets with benefits here. You want your chickens to not only give you the look, you want eggs and all that. No, you either have a chicken that looks good or not so good, or you have a chicken that, like yours.
Do the fancy ones not produce eggs?
They're much less productive they're not designed to be productive.
Well, there's only a few of us. I don't need them to be massively productive. I just want the garden to be a happy place and to look good.
Oh,
And I want good content for Instagram. That's what I want for Christmas.
So you want a fluffy chicken that will only lay 2 eggs a year. Although you haven't had an egg at all from this one. So
Yeah. Arlene from 2 years back is still producing, but she's the only one. Actually, she's not producing. She hasn't produced in about 6 weeks.
Oh, that's not great. So they do that in wintertime anyhow. Wintertime is always a bit lax for all of that. It's quite a kind of stark period. There's not much light. There's not much growing. There's very little in terms of produce. It's quite a lot if you veg garden.
Do you know what I really love about this time of the year?
The light?
No.
The lack of light?
No. It's the fact that we get to December the 21st. And what happens from December the 21st? The days start lengthening.
Oh, yeah. But is it 20 minutes a day or something?
Something like that.
Insignificant, really, at the
Not
beginning. But
well. 20 minutes is very significant. You
I think
mean a
it's
bit?
not quite that.
Yeah, a
it's
couple of
little
minutes
less,
every
yeah.
day. Yeah, but that's really great. I hate getting to midsummer because the days get shorter. Even if
You don't notice it until
you're
September.
only exactly. But midwinter is a real time of hope. The winter equinox is a real time of hope for me, and it sends signals to all the plants, and things start to get growing again. Things like snowdrops begin to push up.
Woo. You've made my Christmas.
But it's true, isn't it?
You know
All of
the
a sudden
snowdrops
there's
that
hope.
flower at Christmas time?
Are
Here we
there?
go. Yeah, yeah. Well,
I
you
know there's
see,
Christmas roses.
there's that one Bengal crimson rose that does flower a little bit at Christmas time, and I was looking at my one this week, and it has a flower bud. So
No,
all
but I'm
going
talking
well.
about hellebores.
It
as in
will.
Christmas
No, no,
trees.
no. There's an actual rose that you can get flowering
There's
on Christmas
plenty of
Day.
roses flowering Christmas
Well,
Day.
this is one that nearly reliably does. It's kind of, you can have a rose on Christmas Day, but it's kind of, if you haven't pruned them and a bit of good luck with the weather and that, it's not something that happens as a matter of course. It's just the odd year every 4 or 5 years. If we don't have a very cold Christmas, you can get a couple of flowers.
And the other thing about our gardens is we smother our gardens. I put up 3,000 lights yesterday,
Really?
just in one part of the garden.
And you say that you're tasteful. Oh, no, you didn't say
I didn't say I'm tasteful. No, Christmas isn't about taste. But it is about cheerfulness and whatever. You can see our house from space.
Yeah, I like those ones. There's one that I pass on the way back when I come down from Dublin to Carlow, just off the motorway. And like that, when you drive past it, you can't miss it when it gets dark. And there's usually cars parking there to take photographs because it is a garden. It's about a big acre garden, you know, around a small house. And it is covered from top to bottom in lights. And then the whole street, you know, it's a couple of houses along a country lane. And like, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, even in the suburbs or even in the countryside, they do that. Where they're like, oh, we have to cover a couple of lights. So the next house has some lights and the next house has some lights. And they all
It has
bright.
become very competitive, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And
It's this thing that,
isn't there even a movie about it, you know, where two neighbours really go at each other? And
yeah, there's
try
an
and
American movie, isn't there, where they
yeah,
do that?
yeah.
But it's now becoming a thing in the countryside and in the cities here. People just go for it with the lights.
And there's been a funny one this week somewhere in the States that somebody has done their house extraordinarily well, just really beautiful, shining light. And next door, they've just done a sign in lights saying ditto with an arrow pointing to next door.
That's what I do on my one.
I know it's a little bit easier. What about Christmas trees? Have you seen the Christmas tree that's been brought to Trafalgar Square this year?
Yeah, there was.
So there's a
little bit of-
tradition ever since the war. The Norwegians or somebody in Norway, a king or somebody aristocratic, sends England, London, Britain a Christmas tree every single year to say thank you for being so good to us during the Second World War or whatever. But this year,
The goodwill is fading rapidly.
well, you know, Britain has been having a hard time because of Brexit, because of Boris, because of all sorts of different things. They're out on their own now. But Norway isn't usually involved in that because it's not a member of the EU. But they have sent a very, very
Paltry
scraggy looking
Christmas
tree.
It's terrible. I saw photos of it. You sent it to me. It really is a little bit kind of. They're not liking them this year, but it's funny. Do you have a tradition that goes around Christmas trees? Then do you go out and pick one, or was that when?
Oh, yeah, we do.
everyone
We
was
go with another, you know, Keelan, who I go swimming with, the two families, we go and we chop down a Christmas tree and bring it home and put them up, and we do the whole hot chocolate thing, and it's great fun. We bring the dogs. So it's out in the country, deep into a woods. Meant to do it this Saturday. But Aileen, Keelan's wife, isn't the most organised. She cannot be kept to a timetable. So when she was,
Like me.
we were due to meet at noon. No, 11. 11. And by 3:30, when she was still delaying it, we just went and bought one in the local car park.
You didn't go up to the woods in the dark with candles and a chainsaw.
No, we
and-
didn't. No, it was getting towards that. And the WhatsApp app's message between the two families were getting more and more passive aggressive as the day went on. So yesterday we went on Sunday morning, therefore we went for a very nice breakfast together to get over to get over all that.
So you have
But-
a real tree. It's not a fake tree.
well,
Real
we
versus
always
fake.
have a real tree.
Always real.
Yeah.
Okay.
I quite kind of look jealously at those fake trees that have lights included, because I spent then Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening putting up the car park boat tree, and going through all those lights, and then it's a job that I really don't like.
Do you remember back in the day when we were all very young and Christmas lights weren't as good as they are now? And they used to be the little like lights that you have that used to be on, you know, Edison bulbs, whatever you call them. They
And
used to
one
glow.
bulb would stop the whole tree.
So when we were very
And your
small,
dad would always blow a gasket.
and he was decided one year when we were all, I, myself and my brothers, there's only 4 or 5 years between us all. So we were all very young. And my dad decided, oh, this is a great thing to do with my little boys. I'm going to show them how to repair the Christmas tree lights because they'll need to know this for the rest of their life. Little did he know that LED lights would come in and they would make it all irrelevant. But he had us sat down around the Christmas tree with his series lights and he was going with a 9-volt battery and testing every single bulb because you had to test every single bulb to see which bulb was gone. Found the bulb that was blown, put it back in, it lit up, we went, yay, and all was well. And then when he was finished, he got the bulb that had blown and he threw it into the open fire and it went pop. And we all went, looked at each other and went, ooh, cool. So Dad left the room. And myself and my 2 little brothers then went, great. So we took off every light off the Christmas tree.
Oh no, into the
And
fire.
chucked them into the fire and let them go pop. So the whole way up, as far as we could reach, we were only about 7 or 8. I was the oldest, and they were all younger. As far as we could reach, we stripped the tree of all the bulbs, let them blow, and he came back in and he blew his gasket then. And for the next 5 years, the Christmas tree wasn't allowed in that room. You had to go out in the hallway where it was cold and there was no fire.
Oh, I know. And parents really, they invest so much in creating the perfect Christmas.
Yeah,
don't they?
and the little brat's room.
I was a devil for finding the Christmas presents before Christmas Day. They were always up in the attic, so when the parents went out, I would go and find. But there was once, it was a swing ball. Do you remember swing balls? I mean, the most useless game that was ever invented. But I found it, and he knew I'd found it. But it was like the Spanish Inquisition before, and Christmas was ruined before that. Have you always enjoyed every Christmas Day, or were there rows when you were a little kid because it all got too much?
Yeah, they were all. There was never ones that were so tense that everyone had to leave. There was always an eventful 1 or 2 things that happened, like the time that we decided to water my granddad when we were leaving Christmas night and all these different things. But
You decided to water your granddad.
yes, he was elderly, old, 85-year-old man sitting in the car ready to go home. Very, very grumpy, always was. We were always terrified of him, and it was very cold Christmas Eve night. We were leaving our cousins. Car was frosted up. He sat in the car an hour beforehand because he was ready to go home. And when it was time to go, my uncle went around defrosting the windows, and my granddad had his window open, and he got a bucket of hot water on him. And it was another 2 hours before we got home because he had to get brought in and changed.
And if he was grumpy before that.
He was so grumpy on the way
grumpy
home. It was an
after.
hour journey, and we had to listen to that.
This is Talking Christmas with Diarmuid and Paul. I was listening to a podcast or watching some program as I was putting up the tree the other day, and they were talking about royal Christmases. And of course, royal families often are tastemakers in a way. They start traditions people love to follow, especially in the past. They love to follow what the aristocracy or the kings and queens are doing. But one of the things, so the British royal family, they all gather in Sandringham, which is an estate in Norfolk. I think the Queen's private estate in Norfolk. And they gather there and they eat and drink and be merry and everything like that. And I think on Christmas Day, they change their clothes 5 times or something like that when they get up, before they go to church. It's all very extra. But one tradition they have is so extra, it's quite unbelievable. When guests from the royal family arrive at Sandringham, they're weighed, they're put on a weighing scale. And when they leave, they're weighed.
Is that to see if they take any jewellery around the house?
No,
Well, some families might need that.
It's the oddest tradition to make sure they've had a good time. So they've put on weight with the amount of food they've eaten.
What if they haven't? Are they banished to some dungeon and fed more?
How crazy is that? And this goes on to this day. Seemingly it's in that movie with about Diana with Kirsten, whatever her name is. But how mad is that? Are you weighed?
No, not at Christmas time. Not unless it's time to go for culling.
You know, one of the traditions they certainly brought wasn't Queen Victoria's husband was German.
Yeah.
Oh,
The whole royal family is German, isn't it?
The royal family is German.
Was German.
It's such a weird institution, isn't it? But yeah, they're German and they're related to every other royal family in Europe or something like that. But because she married her cousin, obviously, who was German, he brought German traditions. And one of those German traditions was the Christmas tree.
This, yeah.
But I think it was probably an ancient kind of old tradition in Germany
Went back
again.
to Egypt, I think, Christmas trees. Yeah, I think they go back all that way.
Did they have Christmas in ancient Egypt? Or did they just bring trees
They
into
brought
the...
trees into the house in what was
Into the
their
pyramid.
pagan time. Well, how do you bring a tree into a pyramid?
I don't know.
Quite easily, actually.
Well, maybe that's where
same
they got
shape.
the idea of
Yeah,
pyramids.
yeah.
it was
Maybe they
Christmas tree.
didn't have pyramids, and then they said, "Oh, there's a good idea for a shape of a house."
So go on, tell me about the history of the Christmas tree.
Well, they were Egyptians brought them into their whatever they were back thousands and thousands of years ago, and they decorated them with coloured various bits of, I suppose, whatever was colourful that wasn't green. They brought them in. It went on for years and years. I don't know how it ended up as a European tradition, but I suppose these things travel through trade and different things.
Well,
and
I suppose it's nice, isn't it? It's bringing nature indoors. And back then, you know, you hadn't got television, you hadn't got movies, you hadn't got whatever. So anything.
Yeah.
So at this, making something decorative from the wonderful freshness of nature, bring it in. And I think originally they used to have, wasn't it Martin Luther, the head of the originator of the Lutheran Church? I think he started this notion of putting candles on Christmas trees. I mean, wax candles on Christmas
actually
trees,
lighting them, yeah, to give them.
which thankfully doesn't happen anymore because many an accident was caused by that. Putting a lit candle on a piece of wood inside where everything is drying out. But that's where the idea of lights came from.
Lights, and I guess then from that decorations, because they sparkle in the light, and we've just progressed with
And
that.
it is amazing how traditions like that become popular because it was one picture in the Illustrated London News or something like that of Queen Victoria, the hubby, and the kids around an engraving of them around, gathered around the Christmas tree that really made it a very popular tradition in these islands.
Mad. And now every single house you drive past, any housing.
Yeah,
place
and
now,
it's an absurd thing to do, and we get them, by the container load from China, or they're grown here.
There's a whole
live
industry
ones,
around it.
huge
and There's
industry.
a debate as to how sustainable it is growing a crop of trees to then cut them down after 7 or 8 years to then grow them again. In some ways, that's quite good because, we're trapping carbon by putting them into trees, but then we're leaving them, rotting them into compost, whatever, afterwards. And, we're using that space that we could be using to grow food.
So your favourite one, taking that into account, would it be having an artificial one or a real one?
Oh, a real one all the time. Well, actually, my favourite one is having a... Can we do this?
You can do that.
Yeah. What?
You've brought your own Christmas tree with you.
Oh, I've ruined everything now, but I've brought... There you go.
Is that your...
That's a real life Christmas tree that you can actually have in a pot, and that will be there. Put that back. That'll be there for a couple of years, so that'll be there next year too.
So it's a pine.
It's a pine.
Is it a Picea?
Yeah, it's a named variety called something. Let me find the name on it.
It's really perfect shape and really compact. So if you lived in an apartment or you wanted a small Christmas tree for one of your kids' rooms or something like that, that would be perfect. Now, it won't like being inside, would it?
No. So it's Picea Super Green is the variety, and it is just one of these name varieties that will grow into quite a nice little Christmas tree. And yeah, it will become a tree in time, but it doesn't like being inside, but it doesn't mind being inside for a short period of time.
So you can bring it in for that month,
the month
or
of
6
December,
weeks.
yeah.
And in December, you can decorate it. You can put lights on it.
You can even cover it in fake snow if you want to. It doesn't particularly like it,
But it won't. The Pisces are strong. They'll really suffer anything, won't they? Important that you wouldn't let it dry out because it's going to be in a room that's going to be very, very warm with probably fireplaces, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so make sure lots and lots of water. Try keep it near a window so it's actually going to keep cool, particularly in the nighttime, because while it will do in a warm room, the cooler the room, the better for it. If you've got a cool porch or something like that, great, because it will really enjoy that. Doesn't like being inside. They come from Norway. They come from places that goes down to minus 20 degrees at Christmas time, so they don't need to be inside at all. But I love these because, number one, they're a little more expensive than normal Christmas trees, but you can keep it for 5, 6, 7 years, and every year it'll put on a small bit of growth. Next summer, all these ends will extend a little bit, put a bit of growth on. You can really forget about it in the summertime. Last year, I had one, left it out on the patio and kind of just neglected it. And occasionally when it drooped, because it will droop if it doesn't get enough water, I gave it a bucket or two of water, perked back up, and now it's going to come back into the house probably this week. So, yeah.
And it's
keep them alive.
Not only live Christmas trees that, ones that are still growing, potted Christmas trees that like the water, your own Christmas tree that's been cut down and purchased. the secret to keeping it going is it's almost like a cut flower.
You have
If
to
you put it in,
keep watering it.
keep it watering. So whenever you establish it, when it's cut down, if you put in a stamp, put the whole thing in water if you can. But, that becomes a little bit dicey because you have electricity with all the lights and everything like that. So just be very, very careful. But the secret to keeping your tree going is
keeping it watered. And I mean, it goes back to this whole, as you say, it's a pagan tradition having Christmas trees in the house and greenery, because greenery kind of meant eternal life. And it's great having a bit of life in the house at Christmas time. So yeah, there's my Christmas tree for this year.
You've brought in an incredibly tasteful looking wreath. I'm in two minds about this one, I have to say. It is extraordinarily beautiful, but maybe...
Is it too tasteful?
Yeah, I think you'd agree with me that it's a bit too tasteful.
It is, and it's also not very Christmassy.
It's not Christmassy. I mean, again, if you're trying to be really posh and trying to show off your artistic abilities and how classy you are, I can see why people would regard this as something beautiful. So rose hips, dyed eucalyptus, old bracken.
Lots of heather. Yeah, heather is the base. Green
And
eucalyptus.
Pheasant
feathers, and a bit of ribbon. Yeah, it came from a friend of mine down in Tipperary. Has a company, an Irish company, forestry company called the Flower Fairy. So they grow Irish cut flowers.
And do they do tacky ones as well as
I think
beautiful?
Emma mainly does tasteful ones, but wreaths are a funny one. So do you have a wreath on your front door?
Well, this will be on my front door.
Well, wreaths are actually status
Sorry,
symbols.
let's go back on that.
Okay.
This will be on my front door.
Fine. After you get it from me.
What do we have to wrestle?
Yeah, so wreaths are actually a status symbol. So the Romans used wreaths as status symbols. So they would put them on the door, and if you had a wreath on your door, you were someone who was worth talking about. So do you have one on your door?
Well, no.
Answer the question.
No, but we've been looking at them. We've been looking at all sorts of ones over the past weekend, and generally they've been awful. I mean, this goes the other way, just too beautiful. But it is important because we have everybody coming for Christmas dinner. We've got 20 for Christmas dinner in our house this year, so you have to have something for all the old bears to talk
Admire
about as
and
they
go,
go.
"Ooh, where did he get that one?" Yeah, and this one, it's unusual because number one, this is all it's all Irish grown actually. The eucalyptus was all grown in Ireland. The heather is all taken from. There's a bit of bog on the farm that Emma grows on, and all the eucalyptus is grown. The bracken is all wild forage. The rose hips, I think you might buy them, but again, they will grow in the native hedgerows around here. So it's a native Irish one. It can be around all seasons, so it's not just for one season. It's a couple of
beautiful,
seasons.
it's robust, and it's certainly going to be a talking point, isn't it?
Yeah, and you can do lots of things. You can put holly, and you can put ivy, and you can put ivy berries, and you can put, I think I have over here, you can buy ilex berries, kind of pre-made ones. That are good to go. We were going to try and make a wreath on this, but I think it's a bit messy. But you can make them yourself. We're not particularly good at making them, we've discovered, so sometimes it's better to get them from elsewhere.
It's better to buy them. And also, it's an industry for somebody, so it's supporting, isn't it? Local industry.
Someone who's good at that.
It's a big thing, in recent years that people have gone to classes to learn how to make their own.
Yeah.
And that's a lovely...
It's quite a nice thing to do, and you get a glass of mulled wine or whatever, and a mince pie, and it's a nice little tradition.
So what other kind of gardening or plant traditions are there when it comes to decorating your houses?
Well, you've got probably the most...
The Pansevieria.
Popular one beside you,
Yeah, so everybody is familiar with this.
Everybody loves these at Christmas time.
Do you think everybody loves them, or do you think
they're
we
part
just
of
have
the
them?
kind of
They're
furniture?
just part of...
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, they're not something that we ever had in our house, really. Wasn't something that we would go out to buy.
But do you have them now?
No, it's never really cottoned on there.
So it's Pansevieria. It is this particular one is a Mexican plant, and it's in the Euphorbia family. And the Euphorbia family is an absolutely massive family of plants.
Spurge family. They're the ones in the garden when if you break, the milky sap comes out of spurges and all of those things. It's probably the biggest group of plants on the planet, nearly.
Yeah, you can even get amazing cacti that are euphorbias, so cool. It's all of that. And what it's known for, as I say, it comes from Mexico. It had all sorts of traditions with the ancient Aztecs. It was grown there and used as a dye, which you can understand for that as a red dye, but also they'd make up potions which would be used to treat fevers. And then some American ambassador went over and he had the idea of bringing it back to America. When Mexico was conquered by the Spanish, it became part of a Christian tradition and did have some, Christian associations with the blood of Christ and
It is
all
that
of that.
traditional red, and
Yeah.
it's although they're not flowers, which is kind of an interesting. There's one there that's kind of half turning, and it shows you that it's actually just a leaf that greens up.
So it's a bract or a leaf.
Kind of unusually, it's a leaf that starts to turn red. So the flower itself is kind of nothing, but it's a bract, yeah, which a lot of plants are that are.
And amazingly, this one was grown in Ireland, and there are still nurseries growing these, even though they're a very rare, or hard to grow Mexican plant. They are, and most of our kind of nursery production under glass that needs heat has absolutely disappeared, but there's still a few families growing
There's
these.
industries in particularly North County Dublin and other parts of Ireland. Bedding plant producers tend to produce these because they're kind of a winter crop for them.
They're a winter crop, but they're quite
they're-
difficult because they
Yeah, they
react
need-
to the amount of light that they get.
Yeah, they're I think daylight sensitive or day sensitive plants, so they need quite a lot of darkness to trigger them into turning that color. So I can't think of that. There's they're light sensitive plants, and if they get too much light, they won't flower or they won't turn red, which is what everyone obviously wants them to do. So you can keep them alive. They're hard things to keep alive, and if you do keep one alive, fair play, because they're not the easiest.
They're not the easiest, and even when you
Yeah.
buy them, and a lot of people will buy these in the supermarket, and they'll want, a really great display for the whole table or something like that. But that journey from the supermarket checkout to your car, if it's cold, they'll really react to that.
Yeah,
they can
they're
shrivel
very,
up.
very, very fussy.
They're
but
very fussy.
they are one of the modern ones, as are these guys that are kind of
But
surrounding us.
just before, do you like Pansevieria?
No,
No,
no.
you really dislike them, do you?
If there was one thing that I'd chuck out from the Christmas decoration
It would be
pile,
the
it would be the
Pansevieria.
poinsettia.
How
Yeah.
interesting.
Sorry.
But you're going to show me the cyclamen, which I think you do like in any form.
I prefer them in their kind of wilder forms, their pinks and their whites and whatever. But the Christmas forms, the reds and the really dark pinks, and these are non-hardy cyclamen persicum, which are bedding cyclamen that you get in the garden centres. Do you like them?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that makes the house look jolly. I quite like the poinsettias for that too, and the fact that the association. Look at a Christmas card, it'll be poinsettia, and look at the television, you'll see poinsettia. So it's playing the game.
Yeah, yeah. And this one, I mean, it's a classic. It's dark green. It's bright red flowers. You can get them in whites and pinks and all sorts of different colours as well. But they're great for a pot by the door. Again, like you say, when your neighbours or your friends are calling, everyone is judgmental. The first thing you do when you call to your neighbour's house is, well, first thing I do is, check out what the garden's looking like or what's the pot by the front door. No, your hydrangea always needs a water and all that kind of thing. So it's great to have something like that. You get them in the garden centre. They're a couple of quid each. You chuck them in and they look good for a few weeks. And if they don't survive, what have you, they can if you keep them well watered and keep them in a kind of sheltered spot. They will actually bloom again next year. So
And these type of things are always so handy for presents because if you can't think of what to buy somebody, everybody loves to get a
who
gift of
doesn't?
something.
Like, you've got a really good one there,
flower.
lots of
Yeah.
flower. So yeah, it's a great one. What about giving plants as presents? Is that something or
I like to give trees as presents.
good? So do I.
Yeah, I think they're lovely, even though at this time of the year they don't look much. And if I'm giving a tree as a present, I will usually plant it for the person too, because it's marking.
Are you going to plant mine?
I haven't got you a present.
Oh,
No, I'm still getting over the bad present from.
well, no, you
love.
have because somebody let slip what you got me for Christmas.
What the?
I don't know. You had someone on work placement, Keen, and he nearly let slip what he got you or what you got me, but he wouldn't get the cat out of the bag totally.
Well, you see, I don't know whether he has or not because I don't know whether to trust you or him. No, I haven't got you a tree for Christmas, but I do indeed have part of a tree for you.
This is dirt with Diarmuid and Paul.
The other plant, I was in the garden centre, it was just yesterday morning, so that was 2 weeks before Christmas, and the place was crammed with bulbs that were about to flower. And there's one bulb in particular that is so associated with Christmas, and that's hyacinths or things like paper whites. So
Paper white daffodils.
the daffodils, yeah.
They're really great because what they do is, you have a bulb and they grow and whatever, but the flower, when they flower, the scent is what you really grow.
And it's a real Christmas morning thing. It's a real hall table thing.
Too much. It's heady. It's a bit sickening. It's kind of like your granny's house, sort of. It's not really something you want on the kitchen table.
Yeah.
But wow, does it
What's
really?
the granny version of Old Spice?
Yeah.
It's
Brute.
lavender.
Or lavender-y, yeah.
Does your granny wear Brute?
No. But it is.
Is she hairy?
Only...
Has she got those hairs coming out?
Well, yeah, she is.
I can see it. Has she ever been out of Carlo? Did she come up to Dublin on the 6th of December every year
Probably, yes.
to buy her turkey? I can see it.
Why would you buy a turkey when you can grow one? And then you pluck it and you put it into your wreath.
Does she look like your woman from Mrs. Brown's Boys? Your granny?
Well, possibly, yeah. Doesn't everyone's granny look like the woman from Mrs. Brown?
No.
So what else? Forcing bulbs.
Forcing bulbs. And that is a delightful gift. If you want to kind of work at something or make an arrangement, just get loads and put them in a shallow bowl and get some moss and put it on the top. And it'll only last a week or something like that. But if you give it, on Christmas Eve as a gift, it's utterly delightful.
How often have you set Christmas decorations on fire in your house?
I don't know that I have done.
Oh.
No, but I'm not such
a pyromaniac.
I think you quite like the...
Well, it's not. It's just one year in particular there was an incident.
No, you said everything on our garden conversations.
Yeah.
You're always...
I'm fire happy. If there's a lighter near me, I'll play with it, and whatever is in the vicinity will get singed.
Yeah, no, when I was 7 or 8, I was the same, Paul.
Yeah. You just shouldn't have firelighters near people like us. So you haven't done anything kind of spectacular with Christmas?
No, I don't think I have. No. Okay. What have you done?
Nothing. No. Just curious because often people have the odd thing that's went up on fire. A bit of holly gets fire in your wreath or
I've set the
that type of thing.
Pudding on fire. Does that count?
Yeah.
And I loved doing that.
It's always a weird thing. I don't get it.
Yeah, but it delights all the old ears around the table.
I know, but everyone else is like, you're burning the alcohol away. Why?
And it's that blue flame.
Yeah, it's a pure flame. And
it's the one time you're allowed.
But it's alcohol. We're burning it.
So, yeah, bulbs. Tell me, what happens after Christmas? Because one of the delights of Christmas for me is when you can get rid of everything, when you can take down the tree, when the decorations go, when you're into a new year. What do you do with these type of pot plants?
Skip.
Not skip, but chuck them.
Chuck them.
Compost heap.
Chuck them, yeah. Unless you're my neighbour, Carmel, who keeps all her Christmas decorations up until July because she likes Christmas so much.
Does she really?
Yeah, really does. She actually... It's brilliant.
And does she take them down in July?
Sometimes.
And when would she start again?
August.
No.
So a lot of these things are kind of one-off, a little bit wasteful, but you can try. But
something like that you could put in the garden, under a tree.
And it may come back.
But the Pansevieria, chuck it.
Yeah.
On the compost heap.
Starting from new next year.
Starting from new and support the industry that grows them and prepares them for us.
I don't know if we're allowed jingles, but we don't need them for this episode because I've got my own.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any copyright because you've written that tune.
I have, yeah.
No issues.
Not particularly. Let's put it on top of the wreath and be done with it. There we go.
Yeah, the wreath is even looking harder. So, 2021 coming to an end. What's it been like for gardening?
It's been another whirlwind year for gardening in general. People, again, have taken this interest in gardening. There's been no supplies had. Garden centres have been wiped out in spring. It's been extraordinary. Lots of new gardeners. Really, in terms of gardening, the last 2 years have been extraordinarily positive.
And not only extraordinarily positive as in people turning to gardening as a act of creativity or solace or whatever with what we've all been going through, or people's eyes been opened to the fact that they have a garden because of COVID and we've kind of reduced the amount of places where we go, but also gardening in a more environmentally friendly way.
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of trends emerging from all that. So wildflower meadows and
Huge,
massive.
huge.
They are the thing, not cutting your grass, letting the grass go wild, rewilding the garden, meadows, all of that just kind of gardening a little less, I suppose, stuck up. You're just letting the garden do its own thing, not being as worried about the garden. That's now in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and is that going to feed into a movement, or how has that come about, and do you see it being sustained?
I think it's came about for lots of things, but the climate debate COP21 happened this year. Greta Thunberg has been really making shapes the last couple of years. It's now become such a hot topic. Gardening sustainably, living sustainably. Gardening is one of the things that we can easily do, and change to do quite sustainably. So I think it's going to continue and probably only become a bigger.
And
talking
I've
point.
been kind of struck by stuff that you've said in the last 6 weeks, as in this time of the year, let it all be.
Yeah, yeah,
Because gardening is an industry, and gardening media is an industry, and there's lots of people telling you to get out, lots of newspaper articles, lots of television programs, get out and do this, that, and the other. But you have a theory. It all looks
just
after
forget about it. Leave it
at
until
this time of the year.
Yeah, clear it off if you have a few snowdrops and bulbs. But apart from that, just forget about it. And, we've had a busy year. It's been an exceptionally busy 2021. And it's great that, we talk about gardening a lot, but we can relax now. We don't have to go out into our own gardens. And we can do a bit if we want to. And over Christmas, it's always nice to spend a few days once you've finally fed up of turkey and family and poker and all of those chocolates and things. Just get out and kind of detox in the garden for a few hours. But there's not a huge amount to do this time of year, so just enjoy
So
it.
don't worry about it, and don't buy into that guilt that
Yeah.
it's a moral thing to get out. It's a virtuous thing, getting out and gardening and having everything clean and tidy. Actually, just leaving things be can be the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Leaving things be in terms of our natural habitats has been a bit of an issue this year, and there were celebrations in some parts of the country when they stopped allowing bogs to be used to produce peat
Yeah.
for the horticultural industry.
Mhm.
But that's been reversed.
Yeah, they're in the process of, I think, changing that to allow peat harvesting to happen for horticulture because the horticulture industry felt that they weren't ready for it and that was landed on top of them. And that's an ongoing debate. And, there is the whole side you have to take is, look, they need something to replace it and they haven't got that product there yet. But they will have to face the fact that very soon peat won't be used in horticulture. And, that plant that we had earlier probably is grown in a peat-based substance.
Actually, all of these.
All of these probably are, to be honest. Yeah, yeah. There's very few plants that aren't still grown in peat-based. It's
And
hard
when
to
the
get them.
ban came in, we started importing from places like Latvia. Huge ships came into Dublin port with massive amounts of peat. So we just took it from other places.
Yeah,
because
we moved the
industry-
problem elsewhere because the solution wasn't put in place for them to start using all the alternatives, which there are, and which in time they will have to because nowhere will be allowed to use peat.
And none of those alternatives are without their issues, but
Yeah.
we do need those alternatives.
But it's all about that's the world progresses. The world keeps turning on, and they'll change things. 100 years ago we didn't have plastic pots, and now we have plastic pots, so plants are much more available. So it'll just happen that they'll stop growing with peat, and in time they'll look back and they'll think, why were those dinosaurs using these bogs? We said this before. The bogs are our rainforests, and we're using them to grow all these plants. It's a bit mad, but that'll be the thoughts of the people in 100 years.
And the good thing about it is that people, the general gardening public, are beginning to understand why we should garden environmentally.
Yeah.
Why we should look after the bees, why we should take care of birds at this time of the year when there mightn't be a huge amount of food for them, why we should plant as many native trees as possible.
Yeah, and garden with nature, and garden sustainably, and garden, as you say, as much with a view to native plants as possible, but not totally being bound to that either. Do you have any massive plans, any great ideas? Are you excited for 2022 and what you'll do in the garden?
Yeah, I'm always excited, with the idea of a new year in the garden. There's lots of stuff about my own garden that I want to change. I'm coming into a funny period in my garden that is really beginning to mature. About 7 or 8 or 9 years into proper growth of some of the bigger trees and shrubs. So looking at things again, I think is important. Taking out some of the things that haven't worked, opening the house out to the garden a little bit more. I've wasted too much time not doing stuff. And also, we have a book coming out. Am I excited by that? I think I'm quite excited by that. Are you excited by that?
Ask next May, then you'll be excited by it because
Yeah.
it's out then. So
It
yeah,
comes out next May, and we're just putting the finishing touches to that at the moment. And we're about to see the cover of the book, so that's quite exciting. And I'm making plans for a very big garden at the Chelsea Flower Show in about 18 months' time, and doing a lot of work on that at the moment. We have a television series over in the UK, so there's lots of stuff happening. So it's keeping busy, but really you can distill it down to the joy of a garden growing, can't you, in late May, early June.
can't wait to hear all about it next year on Dirt with Diarmuid and Paul. So this is it. Happy Christmas! This is the Dirt Christmas
You're
special
full of the
We're-
Christmas spirit.
and spirits.
You've been on the sherry, shaking your bells. This has been Dirt, a Christmas gardening special with Diarmuid and Paul. We will be back in the spring. So if you're really intended to get hold of your garden next year, join us, subscribe, like, review our podcast, which is called Dirt, and it's on the GoLoud app.
Or wherever else you get your podcasts from.
Yeah, and from next spring, we'll be talking you through how to create a garden, what to grow, where to grow, when to grow, right through the growing season.
See you then, and happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.